Hello, hello. It's so funny because we are really living in interesting times when it comes to the merger of the old world and the new world, and that's in so many different facets. We have the old world when it comes to spirituality and this new world of ascension, right? This new world of people finally realizing their faults, people finally realizing their power, people finally realizing their love, people finally realizing how capable they are, people finally realizing that there's more than just the Christian and religious God. People finally realizing there's more helpers to the Most High outside of Jesus Christ. People finally realizing and remembering their ancestry. Then there's the old and the new world when it comes to people who practice African spiritual traditions, African religions, the new world of slavery, right? The new world slavery birthed when many ancestors were taken from Africa, West Africa, into the United States and into what we now know as the Caribbean, Antilles. And I find it very interesting navigating this path because I am not outside initiated, but I am going through my own initiation, my inner initiation, with not only my Ori, but my ancestors. And it's so funny because what you see on social media has a lot to do with how you think for at least a period of time until you break out of that thinking and you acquire your own knowledge, your own feeling of the information, your own intuition. But outside think is extremely harmful to the path, to a person's path. As we move more and more into this age of Aquarius, we realize that we have to stand on what we think and what we know. We have to stand on what makes each and every single one of us different. We have to stand on what we are being guided. The energies have been raised to the point where your spiritual family has so much power in running the show. We are in a new world, and I'm talking for African descent people, especially my Caribbean people. We are in a world, the new world. Slavery was horrible. Slavery was horrible. And there's some people who have the perspective that slavery should have never happened, and I completely agree. But if there's one thing I do know about God, is that everything happens for a reason. So to me, I ponder, and this is not me saying slavery was a good thing. This is not me saying anything positive about slavery, but this is me trying to find the positive in what has already happened, what has been done. And I believe there's a reason for everything. Ancestors, ancestresses was taken and moved into a new realm, moved into a new scene, moved into new energies, moved into and around new nature spirits, moved into new lands, new waters, new trees, new plants, a newness for a reason. That reason could be for expansion. That reason could be for so many things. Newness, a transformation, a reconstruction, growth. There can be so many perspectives put on this. But one thing I do know is that what is done is sometimes unfortunately done. And that's just that. And how do we, surrender to that? Now, the issue is if you allow yourself to be in this new world and not know where you came from. That's the issue. We can't change the fact that the move happened. But do you know how you got here, and do you know where you came from, and how can you solidify that information here? So personally, I don't see a lot of guidance and information online about how to deal with being of the descent, of the Caribbean descent, of the African American descent. I am actually happy to see that a lot of information is coming out about the traditional religions and ways of life of Ifa, Voodoo, and any other beliefs that was grown and created on the continent of Africa. The diaspora is a vast thing, and it's so fresh and new. It's only been, 500-600 years? That's nothing compared to the lifetimes on lifetimes and lifetimes of all this information being on the continent of Africa. So where can we find compassion for understanding that paths may not look the same when it comes to the beliefs of the diaspora? When it comes to the beliefs of Haitian Voodoo, when it comes to the beliefs of Santeria, Condomble, Orisha, Obia, anything having to do, any new belief that comes from the home of Africa now into these new waters and new seas, I'm not seeing too much, at least I don't feel like I'm seeing too much support, too much information, right? I understand closed practice. But at the same time, I feel like it's harming the ones that need it the most, the ones that are yearning to understand the most. And then, yes, there's initiation. There's a lot of resources and communities for initiation, which is great. But personally, I haven't heard the best about initiation. I feel like 60% of what I've kind of heard about initiation has been about people, babalawos, leaders in the community that you can't really trust, that are doing this just for the money. Then there's that too, right? So for anyone who's listening at this moment, understand that being in the age of Aquarius is understanding that you are the leader of your own life, right? And that doesn't mean you disrespect traditions, no, but it's to have the confidence to know that, you know what? You got your team with you. You got your team. Community is beautiful. Community can be found in so many different places, and community is needed, and it's not to walk away from community, because Aquarius is the sign of the community, but Aquarius is the sign of the individual in the community, right? That your own team, your ori, your guides, ancestors, the Most High, Egbe maybe, Loas, Orishas, whatever other energies you may work with, will be perfectly made, transferred, given, shown to you. And it may not look the same for anybody else. And that's okay. And then I know people who said they've done this walk and were getting their initiation from their ancestors and didn't feel the need to actually join a spiritual home or tradition until 15, 20 years down the line. So for my Caribbean, African American babies who's getting into this type of walk, right? Understanding what their ancestors brought here, but now we are in charge of how it looks here in this new world, and that we should not resist the change, and we should follow our intuition, because the age of Aquarius is a movement, is a being, is a time of Great Mother Saturn, and Aquarius is the part of Saturn that changes. It's not the Capricorn Saturn that's grounded and this is the way it is, this is how we're gonna sustain. No, Aquarius is like, okay, cool. We're gonna change all of this up. Because Aquarius's co-ruler is Uranus, which is the planet of breakthroughs, sudden changes, collapses, reinvention, scientific reinvention, a new wheel, a new transformation, out of the blue shifts. So it's like, how do we allow that to happen when a lot of fear is instilled in people who may not be attached to a community or a spiritual house or have gone through initiation? It's important to know that you do not disrespect these primordial beings, these spirits, but you give them nothing but the utmost respect, right? But also do not fear. Do not fear. I believe my black and brown Nubian people, we are of the water. And there's so much fear around the water. Let me tell you something. Something that I heard last night was, you only fear when you ain't doing right. That's when, okay, maybe some fear should come into you. When you ain't doing right, you have some fear come into you. But if that's not the case, what is it, a fear? If black people, we are of the water. From the water, the Great Mother, what are we fearing? Fear only stunts the process of growth. There's importance to move slow, to move intentional, to move respectful with the world of the water. But fear? Because hold on, you mean to tell me that the spirits, the primordial beings, don't know where I'm at in my practice and they don't know where I'm at? Hold on, whoa. I'm pretty sure the spiritual and primordial beings and spirits are way more intelligent than that. And they know where we are. They know our hearts. They know that this new world is a world to still get used to clarify, to build, to resolve, to transform. So I'm not with the fear stuff. I'm really not. And you know, as I grow and as I learn, you know, mindsets will be reinvented and I will know more. And one thing I'm learning about my growth these past few years is I'm always getting taken back to the basics of knowledge. The basics. I feel like a lot of New Age spirituality has messed up or is confused on how to work with these primordial beings and spirits that, you know, this ain't Amazon, baby. This is not Amazon. This ain't no, okay, I want this, boom. Here's my card. Here's my intention. Here's my prayer. Boom, let me get it. It's not that. First of all, when it comes to these type of spirits and these primordial beings, it's all about giving respect and thanks and giving strength to, offerings to, thank you. Many, many things. I feel like 50% of the journey of the walk when it comes to primordial beings and the wild Ishas, I truly believe 50% of that is just giving the thanks. Then the other 50%, all right, let's get these work-ins done. But a large portion is just giving the thanks. What can we do? What can us Black and brown people do when our people were stolen from the land, sold, and moved to a new world? What do we do, right? What do we do? So I'm gonna just leave this here, and I just want to say, as we shift out of the Piscean age of mind control, and mind control also stems from the whiteness that has been thrown at us. As we move out of that age of believing whiteness is the key and being manipulated by white people, by being manipulated by white standards of life, white standards of beauty, as we move out of all of that BS, because they had us good for a while, and day by day within myself, I realize how much my thought forms are still framing that framework of what life should be through the white eye, only because it's been embedded in us also. As we did this shift to this new world, that came with it. But I see my people are standing up now, and my people are aligning with their true ancestral roots and ancestral values. And though it is important to look back into the past, we're here in the future for another reason too. So how can we bring kind of the best of both worlds? Change needs to happen. Reinvention needs to happen. That's how we evolve as a human species. If there's one thing I do know about the old world, is that there was no respect on boundaries. When it comes to family systems, there was no respect on boundaries. You had to follow what your family did. If your family was disrespectful, you still had to be respectful. And that's the biggest thing I see transforming within this new world is, hold on. I am of you. You are of your family, but your family does not own you. You are a child of the Most High. The new world is reinventing how we look at relationships. I don't see a lot of talk about the negativities of the old world. We're learning about the old world as Caribbean, African American people, and all we hear is about the positives. Oh, this is how life was, and da-da-da-da. But we don't hear about how was this handled and how was another situation handled when it wasn't on a positive note. I feel like there's a lot of illusion about how life was back then, a lot of misinformation about how life was back then. And you know what? Okay. That's why we have today and the future to build anew. Be careful when working with spirits. Be careful as in be respectful. For me personally, I abide by, if the spirit didn't come to you, think 3 times before calling it. I also abide by work with the spirits that's in your ancestral court. And when it comes to black people, black and brown people, listen, damn near all the spirits was in our ancestral core. When it comes down to Greek mythology, yeah, that was Afro-Greek. Yeah, Aphrodite, yeah, African woman. Artemis, all of them, yeah, they was African. So if they're calling out to you, it's cool. They was in our court too. They was Afro. They was Afro. And then there's these people that's just like, oh, get your DNA results. Oh my God. DNA results. I'm pretty sure 75% of my DNA is stemmed in Africa. Cool, but I ain't there no more. Many of us aren't there no more. Have been removed from a few generations ago. For example, my heritage, my culture, Jamaican. I am Caribbean. First generation born here in America. There's this big thing, right? What is it? The Arawaks and the Taino culture, beings, humans, were all over the Caribbean. And there's a lot of literature that says, oh, they just disappeared. Personally, I believe if you're Caribbean, you are of Taino descent. But then you have these people that's just like, oh, well, they came from South America. And if you don't look a certain way, then maybe you're not. Okay, valid. But here's my thing. I may not have Taino in my blood, but I have Taino in my spirit. Because my ancestors was dropped off on Taino land, Jamaica. So I may not have Taino blood, sure. But I got Taino spirit. So what's really good? So it's bigger than all, you know what it is? I feel like a lot of this stuff is so logicalized. It's so logicalized. And sometimes we feel like we're not living in our left brain, and we still really are. Sometimes it's hard to vacillate between the whole we are one and the nah, there's sides. And I get that. And my best advice is to continue to walk into self, to know self, see what spirits are coming to you. See how you feel about those spirits coming to you. Because just because a spirit comes to you and a walk of life comes to you does not mean that you have to do it. But check 3 times. Because sometimes it's our own fear that stops us from doing it. So it's basically a journey of patience and making sure and trust and see how you're feeling, and to do your research, but take it slow. Right? Feel it out, but not throw yourself into the abyss. Because it's greater than what is being told many times. Many times. Right? Understanding that there's a boundary that sometimes we have to have with our ancestors. Like, yes, ancestor veneration, of course. But we don't know what we came down here to do for our ancestral line. That's why it's important for us to know our own head and what we came down here to do and our own purpose. And you are not that far from your purpose. You may have a hard time logicalizing it and putting it into verbal words. But when it comes to intuition and feeling, you know what your purpose is. And trust me, if you don't know, things will go in your way to steer you off that direction you're not supposed to be on. We don't know why we may have came back for our ancestors. And a lot of this type of stuff is the book of Water and Spirit by Malidoma, right? It's like he brought into his ancestry the new world, the white world. And many people were unsure if he should be, initiated into the Dagara culture and lineage and beliefs. But he had elders that understood transformation in this new world and this new thing that we have to go through. So that's just that. I feel like I would recommend many people to read that book, because for me, I felt so connected to his story. Even though I didn't live the same story, I felt so connected. And I feel like next video or upcoming videos, I'll do a review of my thoughts on that. But yo, like, let's be real. Like what's tea? What's tea? What's tea? This tea is new. This is some new tea. This is a new flavor. We not in Africa no more. I don't know if I should say unfortunately, but we just not there no more. We not there no more. Something new had to be birthed. And out of that, Afro-Caribbean, Caribbean culture became so rich. Rich. And on my journey, I'm really feeling called to focus more on Caribbean spirituality. Because let me tell you something. Listen, if we all came from Africa, if we all came from Africa, if every single human species, population, all of that, all stemmed in Africa, then okay, boom, Africa is big mother. Yes, 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 yes. But there's a middle piece or a current piece. And for me, it's the Caribbean. Like, bro, like I had to realize that I got to go through the Caribbean first. I got to go to Jamaica first before I can get back to Dahomey, Benin, West Africa, Congo, wherever. And it's so vast because it's like our ancestry runs deep and you don't know which ancestry is calling you. But if you are working with your ancestors, you got to do ancestor veneration. That's the first thing that's calling you. But then it's like you don't know what spiritual practice may be calling you. You may have 10 ancestors that's from Ethiopia, 10 ancestors that's from Brazil, 10 ancestors, thousands of ancestors from West Africa. But your Brazilian ancestors is tapping on your shoulder for some work. Your Ethiopian ancestors is tapping on your shoulder for some work into the lineage. You don't know. You don't know. So sometimes when you follow these African religions or spiritualities, when you follow them without your own intuition, it can fuck you up like anything in life. Like anything in life. You follow something, it can fuck you up. You make something, The first person you go, God, your higher self, ancestor, like, bro. So I'm gonna just leave this here. Because how do we reinvest in this newness? How do we reinvest in this a new way of community, a new way of learning, a new way of working with our ancestors? And you know what I'm saying? Like, spirituality is on the high right now. Spirituality is on the high right now. And it must be respected. Out of everything I said today, the biggest thing I will say is that it must be respected, and many thanks have to be given. Respect and thanks, and you listen, will make your process, your journey a lot easier. And when you lock out that outside world and you come into yourself, that's when you'll see the gifts, the prize, the presence, the abundance. There's an inner world calling you, and spirituality has always been about the inner world. Community is great because we can learn from community, but then we still got to come home and do the walk ourselves.